Yeah! Yeah! Woo!
You're cheering for My Little Pony.
No.
Yeah, there you are. That's what's in that other room. That's what they're
No,
cheering.
that's Stephen Bloom right there.
Oh, never mind. Wrong room. Other side. This side. This side. This side.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, I just want to make sure that you are in the right panel. This is the destruction of the game industry as we know it.
Is this a Steve Bloom?
No, it's not Stephen Bloom.
He's next door, but you guys are stuck now.
No.
Close the doors, please, quick.
Time to play some games.
Brian, sounds
Okay.
awesome over there. Please let me go.
All right, hey, my name is Charlie Hawkins, and this is Jesse Gelbaum. We are part of an independent video game news and review website called Altered Confusion. You can check out our table. It's right over there, sandwiched between one of the fastest growing anime conventions in the U.S. I cannot remember the name of it, but it's in Detroit. So go check it out.
I think it's Youmacon.
Youmacon? There you go. All right, so I'm sure everybody in here is wondering why the panel is called The Destruction of the Game Industry as we know it. Chances are that people have noticed that there are still video games coming out. There's a new console coming out, so why the heck would we name the panel as such? Well, I think we'd like to start off by just saying a moment of silence for the following companies that have fallen. Sierra Entertainment, you may know them for King's Quest or Space Quest or the Dr. Brain series, or I might just be old as sin and I'm talking about games that no one's actually played. There's Carbonated Games. They stuck around for 4 years, 2004 to 2008. They created the Fable 2 pub games and Hexic HD. Those, of course, are Xbox Live Arcade games. Let's see here, let's skip down. Some of the big names, Midway Games, Mortal Kombat, NBA Jam, Ready to Rumble Boxing, Rampage. That, unfortunately, sunk. Let's see here, what's another big name here? 38 Studios, for those who are huge RPG fans and might have been fans of Kurt Schilling. His company went down in flames after only one game, Kingdoms of Amalur.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the ones that hits me hard is the Hudson Soft, which was around from '73 to 2012. They, of course, are the guys behind Bomberman, Adventure Island, Mario Party, and Lost in Shadows. Okay, so why am I naming all these? Yes, ma'am.
I get confused. I don't know. Is Sega considered dead? I don't know.
They still make games.
They make games, but they don't make hardware.
Yeah.
Sir.
How about that THQ?
Yes, THQ is technically dead. They're selling off all their parts, but because they're still technically open as they're selling. But yes, THQ is another one. Of course, you know, you got the Darksiders series, Saints Row, and whatnot. So here's the deal. No matter the size of the company, no matter how long you've been around, chances are right now is a very rocky time for the industry.
They're killing you over
I
there.
know,
Man.
Gotta scream or something. Okay, so basically, no matter how old, young, promising, revolutionary, because there's a couple games like Team Bondi who did an amazing game of LA Noire, but of course didn't figure out finances, and they sunk. And then there's another game, I can't remember what the studio is, but the game is called Hydrophobia, which it was an Xbox Live Arcade game, phenomenal game for like a physics test, but they unfortunately have gone. So here's the deal. What I'm trying to say is that no matter the size of the company, no matter how long you've been around, one day you could be open, one day you could be closed. And the reality is that a lot of the companies are now in fear of that exact outcome. So you're seeing more Call of Duty games. You're seeing more emphasis on sports games, less emphasis on the more innovative games, simply because everybody is trying to make as much money as possible. And that's, you know, that's a good thing. And of course, it might be a bad thing. So here's the deal. As we are progressing into the next generation of video games, the PlayStation 4 is, of course, been sort of revealed. They've told you all the specs. They haven't actually shown you the actual machine.
It says it's like a spear.
A spear?
It's a game sphere.
It's like a.
It's not a triangle, not a sphere, but you're seeing Mars, something like that.
Okay.
I'm guessing as soon as Xbox reveals their new one, you'll see the PlayStation 4.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah. So,
It's the Wii U.
huh? Yeah, the Wii U's also out there. But here's the deal. There are a lot of different ways that game companies are now trying to combat piracy. With the PlayStation 4, the Xbox 360, they're not going to allow you to use games.
No, I actually saw that they said they are going to allow you to use it. But no, they were really vague about that. They were like, you are going to be able to use it, but.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Well, here's
There's this one day that they did it, but ain't nobody gonna buy it, so.
Man.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Because
I
half
mean,
my
that's the
games
thing.
come, the large majority of my games come from secondhand use.
right. Well, then you got to buy the online pass and all that stuff.
With the new systems, though, a lot of them are going to be pushing more towards the digital download. We have faster internets at home. We can now we'll be able to do this. And so it's going to start pushing people away from having these brick and mortar hard copy stores. So GameStops are going to start to fail. You're going to start to see smaller sections over at the Target because people are just going to be sitting in their home, download a game. Even if it takes an hour, people are going to wait that time because you got to get in your car, you got to drive over, you got to find the game, you got to ask the guy at the store, hey, can you please open up the little box so they can get the game out? It's going to take you an hour anyway. So you might as well do it while you're at home and you can watch some sports or watch whatever you want, some Doctor Who, I don't know, whatever you want while you download the game. So there's a push away from that brick and mortar with these new systems.
So, sort of. One of the problems that they're having right now is that the fact that the digital infrastructure is not there. So yes, they are pushing for digital downloads only, but everyone here can probably tell me what happened to the PSP Go. Okay, that was a digitally only system, and it died quick because, well, they basically screwed everyone over. They only allowed for digital games to be downloaded on there, and if you had hard copy, the UMDs, you had to rebuy the game, and then all of the UMD games weren't actually available for the PSP Go. One of the things about the future is the fact that there are so many platforms out there. You know, back when I was little, I had the Nintendo. There was also a Sega out there. I was a Nintendo family for the longest time until I decided to become a rebel, and then I had the Game Gear that took 6 batteries and played for all of like an hour and a half before it drained it. But it was in color, so
Boom.
yes, amazing. And so that became not a portable device, but a always plugged-in device for me, so I could actually play RPGs. So here's the deal. We are now coming on an age where not only do you have the PlayStation 4s, the Xbox 360 or 720s, or the PCs, but we're about to embark on the Steam Box, which apparently prototypes are about to come out in about 3 or 4 months. And that, of course, is the brainchild of Gabe Newell. And he's trying to push for an environment which he can control, so it'd be more like a console, and so he'll know what parts are in there, so you can see what games can play for there. But as a result, it's all going to be digital. Digital is a fun little thing because you don't have to have a publisher. I don't know if you guys know what the breakdown for sales is, but the majority of companies, let's say you're a developer and you get EA to be your publisher. Some people might think that is very evil. EA does have a tendency of trying to get as much money as possible and not pay the developer a lot unless they've done a lot of good stuff. But basically, here's the breakdown. So let's say that you put a game in a store, let's say GameStop. The store is going to sell the game. They're going to then take about 30% of the sale. Then 70% of that is going to be pushed onto the publisher. The publisher, unless you're like a big company and you have one hell of a deal with the publisher's going to take 80% of that 70%. So the developer is going to get 20% of that 70%. And unless you have a royalty deal stuck in your contract, that's all you're going to get. So you can make the most amazing game in the world. And let's say, for example, gosh, I wish I put down the freaking numbers, but let's say, for example, your game sold, I don't know, $1 million, which of course isn't a lot, but let's just say that you sold $1 million. So basically, the breakdown is you end up with about, I think you break it down to like $20,000, something like that. It's a very small number. Now, here's the problem, though. With the publisher, you have one benefit. The benefit is that you're going to have money up front to create your masterpiece, your opus, whatever. But chances are you're going to hit delays. You're going to have snags. You're going to go over budget. You're going to have to pull in a third-party developer to help you with the motion capture, all that stuff. So you're probably going to be spending more than the publisher gave you. So you look at that, then the 20% of that 70% that you end up with, and you're probably making about $8,000 for all your hard work. Now, the digital revolution is, I would say, is upon us. I'm not going to say that AAA titles are all going to go the way of digital games. I mean, you've got EA. EA's a powerhouse. That name means something. So does Activision. So you put that name on there, you're automatically going to be able to sell games in a brick and mortar store as well as digital. But because of the amount of platforms like the Steam Box, like the Ouya that's about to come out, which is an Android console, which looks phenomenal. I helped kickstart. Huh?
I saw that. It was on Kickstarter, wasn't it?
Yep, it was kickstarted. It made over $1 million worth of money. Yes, sir.
How do you feel about them saying that the Ouya is gonna re-release itself every single year? That they've already planned that into their business model structure.
Right. Okay. So the Ouya is going to cost you $99, and then you're going to have like a digital wallet, just like your PlayStation Network. And the Ouya, they do plan to have an upgrade every year and a half, because hardware is always changing. So they want you to have the best experience possible, but they're only going to charge you that much. And I'm very curious to see if they're going to do like a kind of like upgrade program or something. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
But
that would be great.
Trade in or something.
but chances are they're going to give you they're going to make you pay for the full 99 every single year. But in retrospect, you buy, let's say you're gaming on the Ouya for 5 years. That would probably equal up to $500. Your PlayStation 4 is probably going to run you $700. I know it's a lot up front, and but you could have the Ouya that could be constantly improving itself. Yes, it's not going to be a PlayStation 4, I don't think, unless hardware starts really going down. I mean, that's what they're looking for. They're trying to find a way for money to drop on the hardware so they can keep giving you the best experience, but at a lower price. So you have the Ouya, then of course you have your Android devices, your tablets, your iPads, your iPhones, your Android phones. And this is really the marketplace that has basically leveled the playing field. Because of digital, you're going to see smaller indie studios. A lot of these indie studios haven't even been around for 2 years, but they're already ready to produce games. Every single platform basically has the model of 7/30 split, or 70/30 split, excuse me. And I know that when you're selling a game for $1.99 or $5.99 or whatever it is, you're probably not going to be making the numbers of like EA or Activision when they're selling their blockbuster hit. But at the same time, you're not having to split your money a ton of ways. So here's the deal. I'm not saying the publishers are bad, but I think that they're going to have to change. They're going to have to change because the digital era is here. It's not going to go away, and as our infrastructure gets better and our internet service providers actually wise up, and decide, holy crap, yes, we might be losing cable subscribers, but now they're paying more money for faster internet. By the way, I used to work for a telecommunications industry, and they believe that the war between consoles and cable boxes is over. Cable won. I have a different opinion on that. They won this round. They won the battle, not the war. The cable channels you see, the ABCs, the Disneys, well, ABC is Disney, but all those guys, they're looking for a better way to broadcast their stuff, and they know that everything's going to the internet.
Like how they're like bringing certain internet media to the TV shows.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I think, this is my prediction, this is my opinion, I don't have any scientific proof to back it up, but the PlayStation 4, the Xbox 720, whatever the heck they're going to call it, you're going to see a huge push for TV. And if I was the cable industry, I would, right now, I'm sorry Sony, but I would go to Microsoft and say, hey, I know you're making one hell of a sweet box. I tell you what, why don't I put my company's cable card in there, and we could use it as a media-centric device that also serves as a cable box. And I'll take a little bit of money for your, whatever, Xbox Live Gold money.
That would be smart.
Boom, it would be smart. But the real reason for this panel is old ways are never going to work all the time. And the cable company, as well as publishers, are stuck in their ways. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, it's becoming broken, and they're gonna have to fix it because, listen.
Well, I know there's been rumors and stuff about Microsoft doing a subscription model for the next Xbox, like charging $15 a month, but instead you can get the Xbox for like $25, something like that. Do you think they go that model in order to, like, I guess, sort of subsidize the cost of this internet, TV mesh?
Yes. I mean, but the thing is, Xbox already has a lot of channels on there. They're just not mainstream channels. I mean, we're at MomoCon, so I'm pretty sure everybody knows there's anime channels on your Xbox, which is awesome. I've caught up on a lot of series that I accidentally missed out. But it's just going, yes sir.
With all this talk of, television shows being on the internet via video game consoles, and the same video game consoles going to social media like Facebook and Twitter, I may be jumping the gun, but does it seem like they're focusing more and more on like media/entertainment purposes and less on video games?
Yes and no. They are going to continue to push for the video games. They want to be known as a console, but they want to be known as a full encompassing media device. They want you to be able to watch TV, movies, play your games, do your social stuff, do your web browsing. They want to replace everything in the house.
They don't want you seeing the sun.
Yes, sir.
I think that's the big divide right now between Microsoft and Sony versus Nintendo. That Nintendo is basically flat out saying, like, with the Wii U, like, this is just a gaming console,
Right.
it's not a tablet,
Right.
it's not, we want you to play video games. You have
Right.
to do all this other stuff, use that.
Absolutely.
You just have games.
Yes, sir.
There was a study recently about usage of the PS3 and the Xbox. I think Xbox is like 60% of most usage of a week is for Netflix.
Yep.
And with PS3 it was lower, interestingly. More people were playing games on the PS3 than Xbox. But a lot of people are using their Xbox just to watch Netflix. Which
Right.
is absurd if you think about they're paying for a gold subscription just to watch their Netflix.
I mean, I use my Wii to get Netflix. Netflix is free.
Oh, really?
Well, other than the actual.
Right. The subscription cost for Netflix.
Sony as well. It's free. It's other than a subscription.
Right. It is a little weird that, you're paying to have the ability to watch something that you have a subscription to.
Maybe they know that. Maybe they know that little financial trick in corporations, and they just go ahead and do that.
I'm sure they do. I mean, yes, sir.
Did you say that the Xbox and the PS3 were lower than the Wii?
Well, no, the Wii wasn't. The Nintendo wouldn't give up the metrics or whatever. If I remember the article correctly, only Xbox and PS3 were. I don't think Nintendo was going to give up the
Wii's
metrics.
Netflix would probably be really high because I think the majority of the sales of the Wii were people buying a Wii because of the motion controls and stuff. They bought a Wii, they bought one game, and then they realized, I don't play video games.
Right.
What am I going to do with this? Oh, look, Netflix.
Well, there's two things about that. You bought the Wii because it was cheap and it had a very innovative gimmick. And everybody and their brother and mother and sister bought a Wii thinking, holy crap, this is awesome. I get to, sword fight. And then it's like, this makes the sword go like this. This makes the sword go like this. And unfortunately, the unfortunate thing for the Wii is the fact that everybody saw this innovation and they made it a gimmick by trying to put as much shovelware and mini games as possible on there. Yes, sir.
Speaking of shovelware, with all these new consoles coming out, the Steam Box and such, are we going to have a repeat of '83 where we had ColecoVision and Television, Atari, and all that?
No.
Unfortunately, yes. The Ouya is not the only Android device. There's about 7 other ones out there. They're going to be competing for that space. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so another topic I wanted to talk about was, you know how like in many consoles you can play other games, like older games and stuff.
Yep.
And I know it's not as much of a push as digital.
Right.
For instance, I'm a Nintendo girl, so I bought it more. Yeah, the motion control kind of sucks, but I bought it more for the YouTube. You can get YouTube on for free, and then Netflix. And in fact, I can play my GameCube games on there.
Right.
And do you think that if the other consoles, and then I heard like on the PS4, then we're going to, you couldn't play any PS3 games. That was a big hype.
Well, here's the trick. You can play PlayStation 3 games, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 1 on there, but you're going to have to pay for it. Right. They're gone. There's no more hardware emulation.
Do you think that's going to be like? Do you think that little factor about old games going to be a huge of a factor as well?
Do what?
Do you think that the accessibility to play older games on the new gen consoles will be play a big factor as well as the digital?
I wish, but the fact is that you're going to play that one favorite game that you played from the previous consoles, and no one's going to rebuild their library, so there's not going to be as much emphasis on trying to give you all those games. Sir?
I don't think they've confirmed or denied a type of trade-in program for PS3 games.
There's not going to be one.
I don't think there is either, but I think that people have asked and Sony hasn't said no, and I don't think they're going to do it.
Well, the problem was they tried to do the UPC trade-in in Japan for the PSP to PSP Go, and it failed miserably because all you had to do was walk into a video game store, accidentally lose the cover, and then take the UPC out and mail it in.
Nice.
Yes?
They said that the game Destiny that was supposed to be coming out said it's supposed to be one of those games where you can't do that. So I'm guessing it should be.
I hope so. I mean, I would love to see it, but knowing Sony, I apologize for any Sony lovers out there, but I feel like Sony has this diamond-encrusted shotgun, and they just keep shooting themselves repeatedly in the foot.
More arrow to the knee, arrow to the knee.
Huh?
Arrow to the knee is more.
Yeah. Sir?
So essentially, supposedly, I don't know how this would work, but you're supposed to be able to not only talk to people that, like while you're at the dashboard, talk to people who are playing a game, you're also supposed to be able to jump in and play other people's games from your dashboard of your PS4.
That'd be cool.
I mean, they said it, but I don't think
that's one of those things you gotta see it to believe it.
Right, exactly. You don't even show me the PS4 and you expect me to believe it's gonna be able to do all this like amazing stuff.
Right. Sir?
I'm trying to bring this back on track to video game industry imploding.
Yep.
Now, THQ did a lot to try to turn itself around before they finally went under. They cut off their kids division. They tried to focus on core titles, and that didn't work for them. But they did. They knew they were going under. They tried hard. Do you see that? Do you think there's any hope for any other flip? If THQ could turn it around, they saw it coming.
Right.
It's just it makes it a tough call. Like how it's like when does this hit critical mass that there's no going back to these developers?
Right. Unfortunately, I think that the majority of the time it comes on sudden. With THQ, they were able to see the low, slow bleed.
Well, it was the U-Draw that really was.
Yeah.
Can hit their budget.
Yeah, the U-Draw. Yeah, make a third-party peripheral for a system that no one else really cares about, and that just killed them. So, like I said, the industry is changing. You're seeing more digital stuff, and it's because it's going to be cheaper. Xbox Live Arcade games, from let's just say either you're being supported by a publisher or you're doing it yourself. I know it's going to sound like a huge number, but this is not a huge number compared to the AAA titles. The cost to make an Xbox Live Arcade game usually ranges between $100,000 and $300,000. Okay. The average range for a AAA title on the Xbox 360 is anywhere from $35 million to $350 million, depending on how big they want to make the game. Now, I want to just take a show of hands here. How many people love, let's say, shooters? You can't get enough of it. Okay, how many people love the fact that now when you're buying a shooter, you get a single player game of about 4 to 8 hours, and then the rest of the time you have to play multiplayer? Nobody. Okay, there you go. Here's the deal. The way that publishers are trying to combat the losing battle is that they're pushing for more multiplayer stuff so they can continue to douse you in DLC. And that, unfortunately, is going to be the path that they're going to take. They're going to try to give you as much DLC and choke you with it as possible. And also, because of the fact that video game making is not cheap, they're going to try to push out the game as quickly as possible, and then they're going to get away with doing patches. Sir?
When you said push it out, it made me think of Alien
Yes.
Colonial Marines.
Yes.
That debacle. That's
Yes.
Watching that unfold is like gold.
Yes, I know. That was a fantastic game simply because if you looked at the beta version of the game with all its dynamic lighting and the mist and all the awesomeness, and then you saw the retail game, which looked like it was a high school final project, and they wonder why they did bad. Sir, in the back.
How long do you think before they finally cut it out with the on-disc DLC?
Never. Not until discs go the way of the dodo bird. They will continue to hide stuff to make you pay for it until you wise up and you buy it digitally. Then they'll probably figure out a way to still hide it from you. Sir?
Speaking of DLC and pushing games out, Ubisoft now moving Assassin's Creed to being a yearly release title. I mean, they shoehorn multiplayer into that series and it's garbage.
Yes.
And now you get, $20, $30 season pass. Assassin's Creed 3 is like the most bug-rated game I've ever played.
Yes.
It's atrocious.
Well, here's the thing. Here's my huge qualm with what Ubisoft is doing. They're making you sign into Uplay, even if you don't want to. You can say ignore. And in Assassin's Creed 3, when it says, would you like to log into your Uplay account? And you can click, I think it's square on the 360, to skip. It goes to a screen that says, would you like to sign up for a Uplay account? Well, I don't want to sign in, so I just want to play the damn game. Yes, sir.
First of all, there is no Square on the Xbox 360.
I'm sorry, I'm in PlayStation 3. He's PlayStation 3 guy.
Got it. And second of all, going back to the first-person shooting genre, along with the Assassin's Creed comment, I'm starting to notice that, like, no disrespect to shooters here, but I'm starting to see a lot of what I call codification, and that's pretty much taking a game like Call of Duty or Battlefield, and right now even Halo's doing that. They're releasing the same thing every year and a half at best, and now Assassin's Creed is doing that. I mean, I think from AC to AC2, they've been doing that for they've released the game between 3 and 2 years. Now it's just every single year. And I guess my question is, like, with that codification, quote unquote, and like just releasing the same thing over and over, even if they release more DLC, do you see that pattern maybe backfiring on a video game company, or?
Sort of. No, well, the thing is, this is what the publishers are going to do. They are going to shy away from innovation because they don't know if it's going to work. They're going to continue to pump out those games every single year as long as the Metacritic score, which I hate, is above an 85. If you get above an 85 on a Metacritic score, you have a 75 to 80% chance that you're going to get a sequel. If you're later in the numbers, like if you're a Halo 3 or after and you get an 85, it's a done deal. So unfortunately, as long as that works and as long as the dude who runs Metacritic has that much power, it's going to continue to happen.
Well, I also saw that, like, something I noticed that apparently the better the Metacritic score, the better the media review, but not so better the common man review, as I like to call it.
Well, it's because how many people love IGN? IGN, there's quite a few games that they get paid for their review, okay? One of the huge issues with online reviewing is that in order to make it a feasible business, you've got to get sponsorships. You don't want to piss off your sponsors. So even if the game is total crap, you're going to give it a 20-point boost.
Like Kane and Lynch, the guy that got fired over Kane and Lynch.
Yeah. One of the biggest guys that got fired because of his terrible review was a guy named Jeff Gerstmann, who they called it Gerstmann Gate at GameSpot. He left, and then a bunch of guys were like, well, if you're dumping him, we're leaving too, and they formed a company called GiantBomb.com. And now the ironic thing is that GiantBomb.com got bought up by the parent company to GameSpot. Yeah. So.
There's always going to be a market for those because I teach 13-year-olds. They can't stop talking about Black Ops 2. They're all about it. I'm like, you play for 4 hours, but it's like all online. I'm like, who cares?
Sir.
Go into what he was saying about codification. It's not really codification as much as well, EA sort of started this with the captive releases of NCAA or Madden.
And FIFA's going there.
Yeah, and so every year it's basically, I'm not saying they're good or bad, but that's the premise behind those releases. Every time it's basically the same game with a small update.
Right.
And that's how a lot of people have looked at that, I guess, and seen how successful that is. It's a captive audience with a good title.
Okay, so a quick show of hands. How many people out there like sports video games? All right, I'm about to break your heart. This is my interpretation of how EA gets away with murder every single year by re-releasing the exact same game. They have a dartboard. For demonstration purposes, we'll just say it's the size of this screen. They have a dartboard with a bunch of features on it, okay? They got 2 darts. One dart is an enhancement dart. One dart is the one we're going to slightly break. So this year, quarterback precision is going to be awesome, but running back spin move is going to suck. So you pay $60 for that. Yeah, and the roster update. Here's the thing. I am a firm believer. The other thing is if you play an EA Sports game that is more than 2 years old, you lose the online capability because they shut down the servers for basically all their games after 2 years because they want to make money. So here was I talked to one of the community managers over at EA, and he basically just told me to shut up. I said, well, I know that there are tons of people out there who love the crap out of your game. And I understand you're trying to make as much money as possible. So why not give like a roster update for 15, 20 bucks? I would be totally down for that. I don't need to have the same Madden game with just a slight roster tweak. And God forbid there were no roster moves. Like everybody who gets drafted for some reason goes on the practice squad, so you don't actually see anybody. You're paying $60 for the same game. So, all right.
EA is amazing because even if there's not a season like for hockey, they'll still release a game that people will buy.
Yep.
And ESPN this year, every week, simulated what hockey game would have been that week using the EA game. So EA was still getting promotion through ESPN by saying, look at what the games would have turned out this week.
Well, it's because they have a contract. I mean, that's what it boils down to. Yes, sir, back there. How's the money for DLC split? Same deal. The publisher will get, well, hold on, let me think about this. If it's, let's say for example, it's Xbox. Microsoft's gonna get 30%, then the publisher's gonna get 70%, then the developer's gonna get 20% of that 70%. So they're still make money, then again, you know, it's the royalty thing. If you are a big power company, a developer for a publisher, and you put in your contract, which by the way, if you want to talk to publishers, if you want to start your own game studio and you want to talk to publishers, get someone who knows a lot about contracts, because they will weasel you out of every single cent you've got. They could give you $300,000 to create your game, and you could get 20 bucks back if you're not careful.
The nice thing though is now with Kickstarter, you don't necessarily always need that contract because you can put out your idea and see if people give you money.
Okay, I'll give you a second. I just wanted, since he mentioned Kickstarter, I just want to tell you one thing about Kickstarter. Kickstarter is there to help you get your idea out. You're not kickstarting a project to make money on the first round. Kickstarter, I have an example here. Let me see here. Okay, there's a board game called Baladon. Phenomenal board game. Basically, they ended up, I just want to make sure. They raised $31,346 for their Kickstarter project, which was 112% of their goal. At the end, they ended up paying $142.64. So they didn't make any money, okay? The breakdown is, a lot of it goes into manufacturing, then you have to do the backer fulfillment, your t-shirts, your buttons, your stickers, whatever. Then you also have to deal with Kickstarter and Amazon fees, mailing supplies to get that stuff out, and then of course, overseas shipping. So Kickstarter is a phenomenal thing if used right. There's one glaring example. I think it's called, oh man, what the heck is it called? I blanked it out because it was so terrible. The dude basically ran away with $71,000. He made a game that was supposed to teach you how to program while he made the game. And he raised enough money to make an MMO and a weekly webcast. He had no idea how much money it would really take, and within 2 weeks he had actually run out of money and has now gone into hiding. But for the majority of the people who do Kickstarter projects, please back them. They might have a phenomenal idea that you're very interested in, and your help could allow them to produce that project or product, and then at the end, the second round, after you have it and you say, oh man, this is the best game I've ever played, and then you know, word of mouth goes, and then they start making money, and that is phenomenal. But at the same time, if you just get your idea out and you never make a cent afterwards, that is awesome to see a published thing with your name on it that you can be proud of. Okay, yes sir, in the back. Yes sir.
Do you feel like the game industry shot itself in the foot with so hard games where you're probably spending $6 on a game, you beat it in 2 hours, and then it's garbage regardless? And if you do feel that way, why? And another one is, I haven't seen much on actual numbers of how much all the real money gaming is making, such as the real money all counts on World of Warcraft and on Diablo 3. If you know anybody else on that.
Okay, okay, so here's the deal. If you have a publisher and they give you money, that does not guarantee that your game's going to be made. I used to work for a cell phone game, a mobile developer, and we made a ton of games that will never see the light of day. But the publisher paid us for it. There are some times where the game is just good enough and not bad enough for them not to say, well, we're just going to cut our losses. And those are the games that cost you $60, and they try to sucker you in by slapping their publisher logo on, and then of course they get those IGNs or GameSpots to put up one good review, and then people trust those reviews, and then they find out, oh, I don't know what this guy was doing. Then of course you run into the possibility of there's a game out there made by a local studio called Hi-Rez Studios. It's called Global Agenda. I think it was GameSpot. They just destroyed the game in the review. And one of the producers on it actually read the review. And as he read it, he noticed something. The gentleman who wrote this review played about 3 minutes of the game, because like half the review had nonsensical information that didn't match up to anything in the game. But no, it's not going to stop. I wish it would. The real money that's being made, the publishers are getting the majority of the money. Developers are basically making ends meet so they can stay open, and that's why you're not seeing very innovative things when used through a publisher. Blizzard makes hand over fist with World of Warcraft, which is, I think, probably with the exception of EVE and Final Fantasy XI, are probably the only ones out there that's still a very successful model for subscription. Now you got to go free to play. Yes, sir.
I know a lot of people blame the publishers for the state of the video game industry, but do you think that we as consumers and us not adapting to the technology in terms of development tools, like from 2000 to 2010, we've doubled the amount of vertices in a polygon model, and we've come to a standard of art in video games now. We have to hire hundreds of artists to be able to meet the demand that we as consumers expect from a AAA title. If we see a game that isn't like, its graphics are okay, or the gameplay's alright, people just slam the graphics because they're like, this doesn't match up to the Call of Duties, the Halos, the Mass Effects. So we as consumers have pushed the developers into a market where they have to spend $300, $200, $100 million to meet this standard. And the only way to do that is to go to a publisher.
Okay, if you're going to try to make a AAA title and you're going to try to release it in a hard copy, yes, absolutely. We as consumers have basically botched the ability of having innovative gameplay to death, because we want every game to look like Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, like Halo 4. But the reality of it is, because of the advancement in digital games, I think you kind of give it a slight pass because you know that it's just a bite-sized game. It's not, you're not going to be playing it for 8+ hours unless it's phenomenal, like Castle Crashers or Minecraft. Dear God, yes, Minecraft. Minecraft looks awesome, but it doesn't look awesome. But it's so awesome, you know? The thing is, a lot of people buy simply on the way that it looks. And unfortunately, that causes costs to go skyrocketing up. But at the end of the day, if you can create a game that, if you could just hold on to the consumer for just enough for them to see how awesome that game is, then the graphics does not come an issue. But the problem is, we want the best thing now. And that's why digital distribution is going to become so key. Unless you're EA and Maxis and you decide to not allow anybody to pre-download SimCity.
We're playing SimCity at all.
Are you? Well, who wants to actually play it, you know? You just want to buy it and look at it on your desktop.
Dude, you can zoom in on the login screen.
No, here's my one. So the way that video game console manufacturers are going to try to combat piracy is they're going to try to cut back on the ability to play used games. If you try to play a used game, they're going to try to nail you with some kind of licensing thing. I know that I've heard that one of the dirty tricks they're trying to play is if you get a used game, and you put it in your console, and it pings off the home server, let's say it's Sony, and it goes, oh, this game has been registered to that console, not this one, so we're going to give you the demo until you pay $45, and then you can play the real game. Yes, sir.
Well, I had two comments. One was on the graphics, and for, like as you were saying, the AAA titles, graphics are king. But then you have titles like Demon Souls and Dark Souls that are not all that graphically impressive, but the gameplay is such that it keeps you there long enough.
They're pretty massive hard investments. Like the world in those take hundreds of dollars. Those are multi-million-dollar games.
Right.
It's not a huge budget game. It's not like Skyrim, where it's a huge open world and it's got all that rendering going on.
Well, here's the weird and wonderful thing about Skyrim. I love it and I hate it. I love it because it's huge. It's open world. You have so many adventures you can take. But if you decide that screw all the open world, I just want to play the main story, 6 hours and 29 minutes for $60, and then you're done. And that's terrible. Sir in the back. Yeah, GameSpy did pass away, so everybody. Yes.
Could you go on the topic of Nestor Graphics, how it doesn't have to be high-end graphics available? Speaking of that, the Battle Block Theater.
Yes.
That is going to be amazing.
Yes.
Beta, so you guys should look out for that.
The Behemoth has done it right. They have found a way to produce phenomenal games that everybody is screaming to get at, and they didn't have to sell their soul. Right there.
I had a question about servers. Who actually runs all the hardware, and how does the cost of running the servers impact that?
Depends. If you're a small enough company, you're probably renting servers from the actual manufacturer, like Sony. If you're an EA, you've got your own servers. EA, of course, loves the fact that you only can play a game for 2 years and they turn it off. Did I answer your question, or do you have?
Could you give a percentage of how much it costs to run the servers versus all that costs?
Actually, I have a sense of my dad is he runs a company that does big data and stuff, and they recently did a deal with Eve and setting up new servers for their DOS 5.142.
Yep.
They actually they weren't the company that was chosen, but it was a $50 million deal to set up and distribute all the code and everything to the servers.
Right.
So it was a $50 million set of hardware just to run the game.
Yep.
So it's the cost for servers. I mean, that's a lot of data. And
Right.
Those are some high-powered servers, but for digital distribution, I mean, the cost is still going to be multi-million.
Absolutely. You're going to have servers that are going to be able to take the demand. And that's why you're not going to see a decrease in price, even though you're not getting an actual physical copy of the game, which I know pisses a lot of people off because you're like, well, I'm not buying the box, which, by the way, costs about $2.50. I'm not buying the disc, which is, when they manufacture them at such a high rate, it's about 57 cents. So why do I have to pay $60? And it's because of trying to protect the infrastructure.
You gotta hire 40, 50 guys to be on that.
Oh, absolutely. You've got to make sure that, or you can have a catastrophe and people go, well, shit, I wanted this game, but instead of it coming straight to my console, it's now saying that it's going to take 38 hours. The hell? Sir?
Yeah, I wanted to go back on to piracy. I just think that Microsoft and Sony, like, they're trying to combat piracy. It's not going to work, first of all. And also, like, the Wii is the most powerful system of all time, as far as I know, and it's the most pirated. So I don't think piracy is the problem with the game world economy crashing, because it's saying the same thing about the printing press, it's saying the same thing about the sit tapes, same thing about VCRs, same thing about libraries. Like, oh, it's going to cost like the mass public to stop buying stuff. And if anybody in the economy knows anything about economics right now, class the GDP cannot be zero. Like, it's not gonna happen. So,
Right, but they have to protect themselves. The thing is, you're never going to be able to destroy piracy. But for those small little developers who are pleading to just make ends meet, that's what they're doing it for. Because if you stop, you know what, screw it. Piracy, if you want it, you can have it. Then the publishers and the developers have to leave because they have to make money.
but there are some, like, you take like Japanese anime.
Uh-huh.
They make money off piracy because they don't have any exposure in America a lot of times, especially when Cartoon Network stopped showing anime. So like they leave people pirate over here because they get exposure and people buy.
Right. I mean, there is a benefit to piracy. There is the possibility of, you know, I wanted to play this game and it's awesome enough that I am willing to pay the $60, or one of your friends does that. Yes, but at the same time, it has to be under control. Sir.
On the piracy of Japanese anime, they may overlook it for the American market, but in Japan, piracy is a jailable offense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh, yeah.
And on the other hand, on the general DRM thing is, a lot of the most vicious DRM, like Always On and things like that, are for AAA or AAA developed titles as opposed to like the smaller indie developers.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the things is that the indie studio wouldn't be able to afford to run the servers to constantly.
They'd have to fire the DRM.
Yeah. Sir.
Well, I have a three-part question, but recently I've been realizing a lot of games nowadays, the further we go along the line, are becoming far more cinematic. For better examples, Call of Duty
Right.
and Battlefield 3 and the like. But my first part of the question is, how far do you think we're going to go down the line of actually having a video game that is more like a cinematic experience? Because I know as graphics produce and continue, we're going to create a game that becomes so immersive that we'll be using our own hands as the weapons. And then the second part of that, what will happen to games like Minecraft? Like, yes, we love how deep it is, how actually in depth it is, how complex it is. But a lot of people don't like. There's a lot of people are trying to trail away from that because Call of Duty might cost $60 for a brand new one. People are paying for it. It's like they're paying to constantly be able to watch and play a movie.
Right.
So I want your opinion on both of those topics.
It sort of happened already and then went away. For anybody out there who's played Xenosaga, you're playing a movie. That is a freaking movie. But yes, I think you're going to see a split right down the middle. You're going to have those people who want to have those cinematic adventures with more in-depth involvement in it, like the Call of Duties and whatnot. And then there's always going to be a place for those world builders, because there is a huge percentage of us out there who want to play God. So be it the SimCity, The Sims, Black and White, and then there's other games. I mean, there's way too many for me to name, but there's. I don't think we're too far off for having the total immersion minus the VR gear. I think the VR gear is. The Oculus is very interesting. For those who don't know, it's the latest VR glasses. I'm really interested to see how that works. So there's a place for both of them. I think that the cinematic stuff is probably going to become a more main focus, simply because you're having more player interactivity.
In that sense, I mean, I just want to say when it comes to that,
Yeah.
Look at the recent release of Aliens Colonial Marines.
Well, yeah, see, not every studio decides to backtrack to like an idea as a finished product instead of continuing on from their beta. Sir in the back.
Well, I think the key title and what you just said was the whole game would be Heavy Rain, for sure. I think Heavy Rain
Oh,
would
yeah.
be the most immersive, the cinematic game I would play.
Yes, Heavy Rain is phenomenal, and I hate to say this, but I've only played it once, simply because I got so emotionally pissed at the end of the game. Heavy Rain is a phenomenal game for those out there who've not played it. It is a game in which all the characters that you play can die before the end. All my characters were alive until the very end, and then all but one survived. Yes, sir.
Another game that's really more movie-like than Heavy Rain is Metal Gear Solid 4.
Absolutely, Metal Gear Solid 4.
I love that game. People say it's not the best Metal Gear, but it was the first one I played, so it's more special. But my actual statement was about the piracy. Aside from piracy really affecting indie people, which makes a lot of sense, things like Crysis. I think the year that Crysis came out, it was the most pirated PC game. And then they came out with Crysis 2 for consoles, and they said a majority of the reason is because it's a lot harder to pirate on consoles.
Right.
And what they did is they switched over to the CryEngine 3, which is essentially the CryEngine 2 watered down to be on consoles.
Right. Well, the other thing is, I think we're still waiting for a computer that can actually play Crysis at full settings without burning down the house.
Like their supercomputing array, but it didn't quite work. Like we were averaging like 40 FPS in that setting, you know?
Yes, sir.
How do you think console games are going to, I guess, continue to evolve with PlayStation 4 taking on the x86 architecture? How do you think that, how do you think the next step of that will eventually be? Like, do you think it'll just eventually just be like a PC? Or, I guess my question is, how are developers going to start taking on the differences between PC games versus console games? Because now they're becoming more similar.
Right. That's a good question. They're just gonna. I mean, they're gonna have to adapt. I mean, you're already. Yes, all the consoles are becoming more and more PC-like because they have to keep up with the graphics. Because the PC, you can buy a $3,000 graphics card to make it look pretty. And the Xbox and the PlayStation, they gotta try as hard as they can at the very beginning to give you something that you're not gonna spit at. But developing every single console, you've got new twists, new turns, and it takes a while for you to get it down, unless you are one of those awesome companies that were able to get the PlayStation 4 a year and a half ago. There's a learning curve. There's always going to be a learning curve. It's much harder on a console than it is on a PC, which is kind of weird because the PC is always changing, but you have to program around what Microsoft and Sony don't want you to touch. Sir?
With programs like Endo, Dedo, and Speed and Modo, how is that speed going to affect the industry? I mean, it takes less time to produce next-gen textures, graphics models with less manpower.
Right. Sorry. I have no idea. I really don't know. There's always innovative things that are coming out, and it really depends on how many people sign on. There could be a phenomenal way of doing rendering, of doing textures, of doing Speed Tree, which is the, I think it was Elder Scroll Oblivion that did Speed Trees, where every single game was populated by trees that were never the same across games. So I don't know. I really don't know. Sorry. Yes, sir. Right in the middle. No, yeah, right behind you. Yeah.
Sorry to be ignorant, but what exactly do you define as a cinematic game? Is it just a game with a lot of cutscenes, or is it like a game with engaging narrative, or what is it?
Good question. For me personally, a cinematic game it is cinematic heavy, but I still. I think, Xenosaga is a hard one for me because I feel like that's more of a movie that sometimes you play. A cinematic game for me is you get to see these scenes unfold and then you get to interact with them, like Metal Gear Solid 4. That's, yes.
I think that part of what makes a cinematic game is tropes. I think they use more traditional movie tropes than gaming tropes, so
Right.
it makes it feel more like it's a movie.
Right. Sure.
One thing I was going to say was, don't bother playing Heavy Rain the second time, simply because the one horrible thing about the game is the killer is the same every single time you play.
I figured, but at the same time, it felt so bad because the entire time, I mean, I was mastering the button hits,
I know.
and then all of a sudden it fell apart at the end.
I did the same thing. It was heart-wrenching.
How many times have you played it?
I played it twice, and I have a third game that I stopped halfway through because I was working on the same way the second time because I missed a button.
In terms of like, I guess, the gaming industry going towards a more digital thing, do you think that, like for me, I'm a very heavy collector. I have like almost 2,000 games across like 17, 18 systems. I mean, and they're all hard copies. I mean, I love my boxes, I love my collector's edition.
Absolutely.
So I have a lot of stuff. I like having stuff.
Yep.
And so going towards more digital media, like I mean, I download my XBLA games because I love them.
Right.
You know, and I'll download, indie bundles, Humble Indie, all that stuff, Steam when they have sales. But I prefer the physical media. So do you think that, like, I guess the collector mentality would be a niche enough audience where they would continue to put out that stuff, or do you think that's going to just get sectored off and I'm going to have to download everything?
I think that it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think unfortunately we're going to go to almost strictly digital because it's that much easier to control, and GameStop and Best Buy can't resell your games. But I think to combat that, I think they're going to have to keep in mind the wants of a collector. So I wouldn't be surprised if, even though you may not be able to play the game, you might get like some crazy ass like metal box or statues still, so that you can collect. But I don't think you're gonna. In the end, I don't think the game's.
I loved CDs. I absolutely loved getting a CD because I loved having the box and you get the art with it. And when iTunes first came out, you just get the songs. But then eventually they started releasing more things. You got like the booklets you could have it on your computer. So I think there's gonna be a more push towards that merchandising with games. I mean, I hate mentioning Angry Birds, but there's
you want to talk about merchandising going crazy.
Everything.
Yes, sir, all the way in the back.
Bit of a retro question. Obviously, that needs some economic reason behind it, but guesstimation, when did laser gun games die out and why?
Laser gun games. They died out because those games act differently on different types of TVs. And, oh man, when did it die out?
Duck Hunt just wasn't that accurate.
3D? Virtual Boy.
It's great.
Big fan of the Virtual Boy for me.
Oh, yeah.
I still have my eyes after the one time I played it.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. When are they going to develop the holodeck? We're probably about 3 generations away from this. I would love to have that full immersion, that VR experience, with of course safety guards on it. I mean, I'm not dumb. I'm going to get really geeky for a second. I'm not like Lieutenant Data and have to turn off all the safeties to find an even match for my Sherlock Holmes story, which is very bad because the dude took control of the ship. But anyways, I think it's coming. I mean, it really has to. I don't know how long down the road, but I believe that as long as the game industry is alive, there's going to be a push. And it's going to be ironic because we're trying to make our consoles all-encompassing and smaller so they look nice next to your TV. Though your TVs are getting humongous, so you can keep the same size, it's going to look smaller. There's going to be a time where you're going to have a game room, and it's literally going to be a room that you play in, which would be awesome. Sir?
Last question. Back to the destruction of the video game industry. I was at a store called Video Game Trader the other day, and I got there because apparently all the used video game stores like Rhinos, Play and Trade, Software Seconds, all of them were replaced by GameStop. That was a surprise.
Right.
That was the only used game store there, and when I was observing the games, everything that used to be cheap, such as like Pokemon Blue and Red, you used to be able to find it for like $2 or $3 or whatever.
Right.
All of a sudden, they skyrocketed to like 23, sometimes even 30. Even PS2 games that weren't even popular were still in the high 40s.
Right.
And my question to you is, how, like, I guess is that a product of like all the mainstream video game industries doing that? And two, what do you think the impact is going to be in terms of, used video game companies just trying to make it and not being bought out by like GameStop or Best Buy?
Okay, two things. Best Buy and GameStop are going to have a very hard time continuing to do used game sales because of the structures that companies are now trying to put in place. Second of all, the increase in price isn't, it's not the publishers or the developers. It is supply. That's why you see the game, there's certain games out there that are very rare. Suikoden 2.
Oh god.
Dude, I had the game in my hand, okay? I'm sorry, I had the game in my hand. I was $5 short, so I put it back on the shelf. I came back a week later, gone. Now, you know how much Suikoden 2 cost?
Each of like 50.
350 easy. Oh, man. But
that was the same place, so
right.
you can't find anything.
Right, and I've lost a friend over Final Fantasy VII because he borrowed mine and then decided to sell it. Yeah. Sir.
The free-to-play model, that's an interesting thing as far as rise and decline.
Yep.
Because what we've seen interestingly is free-to-play came out, all microtransaction based.
Yep.
People got sick of microtransactions, and now they're going back to you pay one price.
Yep.
And to me, this touches on the collector's thing. I don't like free-to-play games because you can't go back. Like,
right.
Because a lot of the servers are going to shut down. Like, I can pick up an old copy of, Morrowind and go back and play that again.
Absolutely.
With all the free-to-plays, you don't get that. I see that's just a market that's just going to continue to shrink after its massive growth.
Well, okay, two things. Free-to-plays are phenomenal for companies simply because you can throw it out there quick and then add content as you go. I mean, that's one of the big things for high-res studios. They do a lot of free-to-play. It's not bad.
Great.
Tribes, Smite, Global Agenda. The Global Agenda has been basically kicked to the curb because of Tribes. Let's be honest. Global Agenda was a Tribes clone, and then they got the rights to Tribes. So they were just like, okay, we'll just keep that over there. But here's the thing. Yes, because of the free-to-play games, you never know. One day you can be able to play it and with all the content you bought, and the next day it's gone. And this is unfortunately the downside to digital distribution in general is that there's a very good chance that they could turn stuff off and then all of a sudden the game's unplayable. So, sir.
I have sort of a few points that tie into the overarching theme of everything that everyone's been talking about. So, on the development of realism within video games, I've been in talks with Michael Abrush, who's he's one of the original developers of the Quake engine, and he's he's up there with the id Software guy. I'm terrible with names, but he's basically like one of the lead engine developers of our generation. He works at Valve now, and he and I have been talking for a while about parallelism because I'm a software engineer, big data, parallel computing. And what he thinks is that we're moving away from innovation in graphics. Like, we're done for a while. And what he's looking at and what Valve is looking at and the software space in general for video games is we're moving towards lowering the cost at any cost. And even if that means moving entirely to the mobile game space, EA did $935 million in revenue in 2012. That was the gross, that was like their most profitable space. And most of that was free to play. Like, we talk about free to play in terms of MMOs and League of Legends and all this stuff,
Yep.
the free-to-play mobile market is killing
Yep,
it
yep.
right now. And all the big publishers, everyone really is moving away from this AAA game space, realism, to let's make a $10,000 game and make $500 million.
Right. Well, yeah, absolutely. And you're right. We have basically reached the pinnacle of graphics. I mean, yeah, you're going to have engines that are going to be able to push out more polygons because of the advancement in technology and whatnot. But we can't go much higher. It's not going to be a jump like
64 to PlayStation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the 64 to the PlayStation 2. You're not going to see that kind of innovation. So yes, they are going to find ways to drop the price. And absolutely, the mobile market is huge because not only can the big name studios get in there, but so can the small ones. One of the tricky things about certain mobile marketplaces is that a lot of people try to put out their game for free, which is phenomenal, but they have this tricky habit of changing the price. But now mobile markets are now shutting that off. If you put your game up for free, it's got to stay free forever.
I think the microtransaction market can be a little tricky legally. Like even this past week, Microsoft lost some huge lawsuit, like a $500 million lawsuit, because kids were randomly using their parents' credit cards to buy microtransactions.
$79 on an iPad, a kid racked up. He bought a free game, but it was $79 in iPads, and they wouldn't refund their money.
Yeah. There was a kid in England, I think last year, 2 years ago, who put like $10,000 through Farmville.
Yeah.
And so Microsoft now
maxed out his mom's credit card.
Microsoft now owes, like, I think it's $5 per person, and then if you paid more than $30, they're going to give you that money. And they just lost that this week because the kids just kept buying microtransactions on their parents' credit cards, and their parents weren't paying attention. I mean, granted, that's a parental thing, but that's one of the things they have to watch out for.
Yeah.
Sir.
You said earlier about the game room. I remember when they did it, but Xbox showed off the demo of the Game Master or whatever. Is that a thing you'll actually think we'll ever see? Because it kind of looked decent for some games, but it also looked like something that probably never actually existed. And that's not my main question. That's just something.
I think it will happen, but I don't think it'll be this all-encompassing. You could play every game in it. I don't think that's even possible because there's so many different genres that would not make sense at all.
I think, but if it did that, then what would be the point of them putting it out?
Right.
Then it would just be like a Connect, but more niche.
Right.
Like you wouldn't have anything.
Right. Well, game systems and innovation are basically dictated by the companies who are willing to put their product on it. So they would have to have one hell of a marketing department. And if they can do it, and people jump on and promise sign contracts for 5 games or whatever, maybe.
I don't think they'd be willing to put that much money into it. I don't know. But my main question
You're ruining my dreams. I want that room.
The thing with going all the digital and stuff, I have a big problem with that because I have very, very bad internet because I live out in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
Amen.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but like, and there was a thing a couple of weeks ago, I think it was Warner Brothers, they put out a statement, somebody was asking them about the Google Fiber project.
Yep.
And they essentially said,
You're very well. No one wants high-speed internet.
yeah, and nobody wants high-speed internet. We're looking forward to see what the consumer wants, and they obviously don't want high-speed.
No, the thing is, they like putting the pressure on the consumer about how much money you're gonna spend. And if you put the Google stuff in there, it becomes a lot easier for that stuff to kind of be circumvented. They want complete control of everything. Believe me, they want complete control of everything. And there are certain companies that are actually seeing that. Verizon is one of them. Not Verizon Wireless, but Verizon, the company that services the Northeast. They're putting optical in. Yes, ma'am.
Back to that Farmville incident, I recently got kind of sort of addicted to Farmville too.
Yep.
And while I was progressing through the levels, I realized I needed more animals.
Yep.
But I figured out very hard that all the chickens that I need, there's like 15 chickens in the inventory that I can buy, but only 2 of them I can buy with in-game points.
Right.
The rest are just money, and some of them cost up to $50, but they'll press me through the game.
Right.
And it's getting kind of sad, like, okay, this isn't a game, this is just a drug dealer.
Well, here's the deal. One of the big issues with Facebook games is that there was a huge popularity spike in them when the first Farmville came out. And, you know, they were making hand over fist at Zynga, and they decided they were immortal. Well, no. I say this simply because there were some people in the IT department who play games who understand what's going on, and they noticed that if you block Facebook on the network, productivity goes up. But if you block Facebook on the network, there's a very good chance that you're not going to play it when you're at home. The highest amount of time spent on those social games by Zynga was during office hours. Okay? That's what it was. And so they're combating that with making the wide variety of items that you need to progress through the game more microtransaction. Or they force you to pull in like 30 of your best friends. And I've turned off those notifications. I don't want to play any of those games. I don't want the invitation of, if you join the game, I'll give you a black sheep. I don't want it.
And I think that's why the video games, they feed on little kids, I'm sorry, but they do. These things, it's very easy to get a 9, 10, 11-year-old kid who doesn't understand what they're doing necessarily to fall for one of those. And they see, oh, my friend's playing this, he sent me a request, and they start playing it, and they keep going in. I mean, I teach, and I know how gullible my 13-year-olds can be, because they continue to buy Black Ops every year. I heard nothing about October, but you're going to get Black Ops, like, I don't care about shooting zombies. I think
that's only, no, that's only a part of it. I mean, but,
excuse me.
Yeah.
I heard about the zombies a lot.
Yes, sir.
On a more positive note of like casual mobile games, do you think that those games are gonna like revitalize some long dead genres? Like you already see platformers, but how long is it till we get a shmup or a fighting game on a platform?
Okay. So the one huge hurdle that has to be passed is that there's so many people who need to have that tactile experience. So if you, it's going to happen. I mean, you're going to see the long dead genres resurrect. I mean, there's point-click adventures happening right now, which is awesome. But it's going to happen. It's just a matter of trying to find a way to get the controls to not be so difficult, or for me, because I've got huge ass thumbs, if I put it on my screen, there's about like this much of the screen I can see, so that's not going to be a game I'm going to play. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you ever heard of the game AVGM by Edmund McMillan. He made Super Meat Boy, I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yes.
It was a game called AVGM, he made it for a game jam. And it was kind of poking fun at Farmville and games like that. What it did was, you would click the mouse twice and it would give you an item. Click the mouse 4 times, you get another item. Click it 8 times, another. And it basically kept doubling up until you hit 10,000. It would give you items colored to the items, and it's saying you're basically doing exactly what Farmville does. You're being awarded for time spent and amount of clicks by just giving you virtual items that mean nothing.
Absolutely. The other thing that really pisses me off about Farmville and all those games is that they sucker you into constantly having to go back because you run out of energy. That's crap. If I've got time to play, I want to play. I don't want to be like, all right, gotta wait 30 minutes. Sir?
On something of the AVGN satire, there's a game for XBLA in the indie marketplace called DLC Quest.
Yep.
And it's a buck to buy, and that game is, I mean, it's only like an hour long, but it's still hilarious, because it's like, you know, to move you have to pay 2 coins, like to jump you pay 8 coins.
Yep.
It's great. I really like that element of it.
Yes, sir.
You can't take this Final Fantasy VII thing. You do enact physical violence against your friend.
Huh?
Do you enact physical violence against your friend for selling your game Final Fantasy VII game?
Oh. We just don't.
Give it up its right as your friend, so go ahead.
Yeah, he tried to pin it on someone else. He's like, oh yeah, I let this person borrow it. I'm like,
I actually, one question, sir, was I've been overseas most of my life. I just came home and I realized this new thing. I don't know how long it's been going, but drive me crazy. Companies now releasing collector's edition in limited quantities.
Yep.
Which makes like before Diablo 3 came out, collector's edition was already at Borderlands 2. Both collector's editions were eBay before they came out for $800.
Yep.
Do you think it's going to be continuing to trend? I mean, I can't understand the finances behind it. I understand like wanting your game to be epic and making a big aftermarket for it to get more word of mouth for it. But just don't, if people want to pay an extra $150 for a game, then just put it out, especially when you do pre-orders. I missed like mobile windows for 2 days when I first came back from overseas. Like the window for pre-order was 2 days or 3 days.
Right.
Sold out.
Right. They, for collector's editions and limited editions, they have to make it limited. And that's why they can raise the price, is because you got to be one of the lucky few that actually gets this. I would love for them to actually produce a collector's edition that has the same quantity as, the regular edition.
The thing that I always get confused about with collectors and things like that is nowadays you're seeing a lot of, if you buy this game, you get like the limited edition red Xbox, that's the Gears of War Xbox. And I'm like, well, if you really like Gears of War, you probably already have an Xbox. Who are they selling those to? But it seems...
I traded mine in and bought the Gears Xbox.
Oh, you did?
I traded in my PSP for the God of War PSP.
Yeah, so I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I just always find that confusing, just because a lot of people who buy those games, like I didn't want to buy the Assassin's Creed PlayStation 3 because I already have a PlayStation 3. I just want the game.
Well, I know someone who has like they explicitly buy like every single limited console that comes out just to own.
And see, there's your answer to who buys these $800 collector boxes. Those people that truly want it. And they want those figurines, and they want the book to go along with the world, and all those things.
Timing-wise, though, I mean, limited edition, I understand.
Right.
It doesn't just seem like you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're doing pre-orders. So, okay, at the end of pre-orders, we now know how much money we can make of people who want to pay an extra $200 for a game.
Right.
Let's cut it off after that, and then it's done. But it's like 2 days of pre-orders, and it's like, yeah, we're not doing it anymore. I mean, I've seen online petitions for both Diablo 3 and Borderlands 2.
Right.
There are multiple thousands of people saying, I'll pay you an extra 100 plus the extra 200, and not pay this guy on eBay an extra 500 for the same game.
Sometimes marketing is stupid. Okay, we just have a little bit of time left, so I think we had 3 questions. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we'll go right here.
All right. I know we talk a lot about everything we're talking about sort of only applies to the Western games market, right? Like if we look at Japan's model, Japan releases a new Neptuna every 6 months. The game costs like $1 million to make, and it sells like 2-3 million copies, like easy. And like that's a totally different market, and their models there are totally different. And then if you also like look at Russia, Russia has a 98% piracy rate for almost every game, and they're exclusively PC. But on League of Legends, the Russian player base is huge.
Right.
It's like free-to-play models there are like insane.
Right.
So it's clear that other models for games do work rather than our Western ideal of how you make money with games.
Right.
Do you think that like our culture could ever shift to match the Japanese or Russian?
Americans are stubborn.
Yes, they are. And
we are dug in our ways.
We might take like a couple of hints and claim to be that we just came up with them. We'll never admit that we, might have stolen a little bit of ideas from Japan, but it will never be a huge.
Not only are we stubborn, you're wrong for being different.
I want to touch on another thing real quick.
What's up?
There are different people think differently, like even how you write can affect how you think. So we're probably never going to adopt that because our style of thinking is not the same as Japan or Russia.
Neither is our color palette. I mean, if you look at the same game across all the different regions, like Kingdom Hearts, it's not the same colors. That Sora is totally clothed in different colors. They might be kind of the same costume, but it's different colors. Sir.
About the limited edition. There's been I remember Battlefield 3 had the limited edition where you got like that free map.
Yep.
That was around for 7 months. I think you could probably still go to a majority of Walmart.
Yeah, well that's the thing that they do. It's a marketing trick by both the publishers and GameStop. I worked at GameStop for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And basically it's not a limited edition. You're pre-ordering it and it comes boxed in the game.
Yep.
And GameStop are allowed to sell that to anyone. It doesn't matter.
But
it's a release.
that they do have the normal version that came out, like, because I bought Battlefield 3 during Black Friday of that year, and I accidentally, because I wasn't paying attention, they had the limited edition right next to the non-limited edition. They were both on sale, but I got the non-limited edition.
Right. Well, see, but here's the thing. If it's virtual stuff, they can get. Here's the biggest issue. The reason why you see limited quantities of the collector's edition and the limited edition in your brick and mortar stores is shelf space. They don't want to take up huge chunks of real estate where they can make more money. That's why you saw all these fire sales for Rock Band, because they wanted to get rid of this stuff. Yes, ma'am. Last question.
Oh yeah, this is a different kind of virus, but people, hacking into other people's accounts on Xbox Live and taking going on a spending spree with their credit card.
Yep, happened to me.
Buying credits and selling. They'll like buy credits and then sell them online.
Yep. They gift them to other accounts.
Yeah.
That's really risky. Real quick,
That's
that's
just
just
bad.
Yeah.
You're just not just selling for the company or selling for the individual scheme.
It sucks. It absolutely sucks. And I have like 2 episodes of some TV show now on my Xbox. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, well, we've locked your account now. Do you know your password? I'm like, they changed the password. That's why I'm calling. But yes, that absolutely 100% sucks.
Real fast, did you hear about the Russians actually embezzling money using Steam, like the Team Fortress 2 keys? Like they take their fraudulent credit cards, buy Team Fortress 2 keys, turn it into hats, and then turn it back into money?
Yep. Oh yeah. There's very interesting, unique ways that people are trying to
The
make money.
Chinese have been running gold mining
Yeah.
mining companies for
Yeah.
years and years, where they just have these people play World of Warcraft.
But
they
here's-
make these things and they sell them out again and make money off of them.
No. This is how they made it legal, everybody. And this is going to be my, unfortunately, be my closing thought. For the less criminally insane individuals in prison, their observation time is 2 hours in front of World of Warcraft gold mining. So the government has created a gold mining operation so they can make money off the prisoners, because where are the prisoners going to go? And they get to play a game.
We make license plates, they play World of Warcraft.
All right, everybody, thank you. I'm Charlie, that is Jesse. Thank you for coming to our
We'll be
panel.
at the booth outside if you want to
We
keep
have a
talking.
table right out there, so thank you for coming. And I have 4 t-shirts for anybody who wants to come up here real quick.